Today we're going to talk about a book in architecture by Antonino Saggio. Antonino Saggio is an architect and an Italian critical in architecture, and wrote a book about Louis Sauer, an unconventional American architect. What is about this book?
I was a pupil of Sauer and a young faculty with him at Carnegie Mellon in the 80s, and I studied very much his architectural work in housing particularly. And I started publishing many things about him starting in 88. Particularly this work is a monograph that I published in 88, un architetto americano, Louis Sauer, that is a complete book of his work. Later I published some other articles, one very long article on l'architettura cronaca e storia, and this article was translated only last November through a grant of Professor Sauer. So we finally had, after 20 years of Italian, an English text.
So Nino, can you explain what is the characteristic of Louis Sauer architecture?
As an architect, Louis Sauer is an extremely talented architect. He has very strong concept both in form making, particularly the idea of the invention of space and the difference between inside and outside. And on the other side is an extremely talented architect in low-rise high density. He is probably the master of low-rise high density.
Why did you define him an unconventional American architect?
Unconventional because Louis Sauer, although very famous, particularly in the 70s and the 80s, he was not a so-called signed architecture. He was not known because of the purely stylistic approach of his architecture, but his very strong interest in working in the marketplace, working with the developer, working with the clients, working with the inhabitants in a mixture of sociological, psychological, contextual attitude. So that was completely unconventional at that time and still is, basically. It's not kind of the mainstream.
Yes, and what about these 5 masterworks?
The 5 masterworks are 5 architecture that I selected to depict with clarity his different approach. The first one, it is Franklin House. It's a beautiful little house on the coast in which many issues of his architecture come strong, like the strength of the outside in relationship with the strong inside. So this is one work. Another work, it is Penn's Landing Square, which is his masterpiece in low-rise high density in Society Hill, Philadelphia. Okay, here it is. And of each work there are around 15 pages dedicated to it, with plans and all the details to really understand. And also there are some sections of the book that will describe the work with more details. And then after Penn's Landing Square we have Cincinnati Concourse. It's a very, very, very rich and interesting space in Cincinnati, a public space, a fountain garden along the river. And then there is a New Market, that is another project in Society Hill, an infill project of a commercial space inside Society Hill. And finally, Governor's Grove, that is a residence in the country in which many interest aspects of landscape and architecture come. So this is the book, basically.
Yes.
It's kind of heavy text in it that really describe what it's about.
Yes, so it's a very important book, and the particular thing is that it's published on www.lulu.com, when people can buy it or can download.
Yes, exactly.
Can download.
And it can be bought worldwide very easily through my specific store in Lulu, that is, I will give you the address in this writing above, and then you can also download and can be distributed worldwide. It's also in Amazon, in other search engine through the ISBN number. So it's a book that can circulate, particularly for people that are interested in this. And I learned that particularly in places that are really developing, like China these days, where there is really the need to understand how to create housing that are not only high-rise but also low and dense inside the city. I mean, the lesson of Lu can be still very good and very interesting. Here's the old book, that's the newborn.